Hello my friends, welcome back for today's shave, which is brought to us by RazoRock's Santa Maria del Fiore, or the Basilica Santa Maria of Florence. Nice, it's a beautiful soap. I've got it blooming here, I haven't even loaded it yet. Came in this big, heavy duty glass container. Razor we'll be using is one I used just a couple weeks ago, and I wasn't sure if it was completely ready to go, so I touched it up a little bit. This is that little 5/8 SSA that I picked up on eBay. This thing is a wickedly tiny, full hollow ground, so just super thin. It should give a pretty good shave. Let's load this thing up and think about what we're going to talk about today. And today in Congress, not our Congress, it's the Continental Congress. Henceforth, that's when I'm talking about Congress, I'm talking about the old guys. In 1775, they adopted what they called the Articles of War, which isn't like, yes, we're declaring war on England. The Articles of War they're talking about are how the articles that the army is going to be operated under. So like discipline and how it's laid out, and it's a forerunner to what I served under was the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which came up in 1950. See how quick that's blooming? Yeah, this is great soap. And it's just one thing after another, boy, but these guys were serious about everything. All the guys in the Continental Congress. And this just kind of underlines to me just how thorough their work was when they were laying out this new country. They thought of everything, which is kind of impressive considering how young these guys were. This was the shocker for me when I was doing a little looking up of how old these guys were. I got a list here I'll talk about here when I'm done messing with the lather here. For example, George Washington, they kind of show him all the time with a long powdered wig, and he always had that blue uniform on. That's when he had made tailored when he came to Congress to say, okay, he was kind of angling for the commander-in-chief job, but he kind of was also knew that he was a little bit out of his league. But he was only 43 years old at the time. He was not a young man, or not an old man. Other guys that are here, of the delegates to the Continental Congress, you'll have Sam Adams, who's 40. No, John Adams was 40. Sam Adams was 53. Thomas Jefferson was only 32 years old. That's the guy who wrote the Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Franklin was the old guy. He was 69 years old. The oldest one there that I know of. John Hancock was 38. Patrick Henry, the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death guy, he was 38. No, 39. Richard Henry Lee. This is kind of like going down to some years ago. I was involved in some community theater, and we put on a production of 1776. That would be something neat to put on again this next year, but I don't know if they'll do that. My memory isn't what it used to be, so I remember my lines and stuff. I couldn't find my character, McNair. I don't know how old I was. At the time, I was in my mid-50s. I think 15 years ago, I was about 55 when I did that. But some of these people on the list are familiar to me, and I keep, when I read them, brought to mind of that play. Like I said, James Madison, he was a young fellow, he's 24. Robert Paine was 44. Thomas Paine, he was there, I don't know if he was a delegate or not. 38. This fellow named John Jay, I don't know who he was. He was 30. Edward Rutledge, if you see the musical 1776, he's a key character in that one, but he was only 25 years old. Charles Carroll, George Clinton, he was 36. Elbridge Gerry, 31. I've got a list over here. George Wythe, 49. Thomas Stone was 33. And Joseph Hughes. Those are the only people on the Continental Congress that I was able to scrape together how old they were and where they were at the time. But you see a pattern here, they're all kind of middle-aged. Or maybe, yeah, in their youth, they still have all their vigor. Now our Congress, see how that contrasts with how our Congress today, those guys are in their 70s and 80s, all of them. They had people here fiery in the flower of their youth, but showing an awful lot of thoroughness in the job that they're doing. And some of that work stands up today. Well, it's only 250 years. For some reference, this so Santa Maria del Fiore, if I RazoRock, but the cathedral, it was started in 1296. So that's what, 719 years ago. So we can be impressed with ourselves. 250 years. But Italians, Europeans, and other more mature countries, I guess we could call them, they say, oh, how cute, 250 years. This is relatively recent history that I'm studying. Kind of neat, huh? You get kind of wound up in the details and thinking about antiquing, or saying, you know, this house is over 70 years old. Well, in the bigger scheme of things, it's not very old at all. And so our nation is still pretty young. And I hope, as a young nation, we can continue to be as resolute, thorough, and as grounded on principle as these men were 250 years ago. That's my hope. My age, I'm 65. My days of being a big influence one way or t'other are past us. But you young folks, if you haven't done it yet, get your stuff together, because there's a whole line of history buffs that may be looking up what you did in 2025. That's it for today. Thank you so much for coming. This was a pretty good shave. I didn't quite get the edge on this SSA yet. It's super hard steel, and so I thought it needed a little tune-up, so I just pulled out a little palm stone of natural Japanese, or J-Nat. Raised a little swarf and ran a few laps on it, which would have been great if it was normal steel. Swedish steel, much harder. I may have to put a little more time on this thing to get it really where we want to have it. Thanks for putting up with me. If you made it this far, you like this kind of content, please leave a like. If you're so inclined, subscribe, and we will, oh, I guess I better tell you, I'm Major Rich at theshavingcodry.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.